Okay, so we start the new topic today. We have just two more topics, and I wanted to see if we could finish it this week in 2 days, 4 hours each. But I think 4 hours is quite a long time to, discuss one single topic. So we'll have 3 hours today, and then 3 hours on Friday, and then again a couple of hours next week, with which we will complete our entire course. So today we are going to talk about Rasayana, and this is a very important and promising field of clinical application in Ayurveda. So Rasayana is the method of rejuvenation. It's variously understood as geriatrics, care of the old, sometimes as rejuvenative medicine to improve health and to slow down aging. And the many claims also about this branch in Ayurveda that this is includes techniques and methods with which we can reverse aging. So putting all that hype aside, we can say that Rasayana aims to keep us in good shape, both physically and mentally, and it's especially a long-term planning for healthy aging on the whole, generally if you speak. The main goal of Rasayana is to slow down the process of aging and to preserve the quality of the tissues and the mental functions, so that when we age, we are endowed with the basic faculties with which we can still lead a quality life. So apart from Rasayana being a planning for healthy old age, it's a planning for a healthy retirement from life. Rasayana is also specifically applied in diseases for rejuvenation, regeneration, for rehabilitation, for recovery of the functions of organs, for regeneration of damaged tissue. So Rasayana also has a very specific medical application. So these are, we can say, two broad areas in which Rasayana is applied. With this background information, we will now go on to explore some aspects of Rasayana as described in the classical text and as practiced today. And let's look at some of the definitions. I don't know if you are aware about Rasayana, but those who have had some basic exposure to Ayurveda would be familiar with this term. And Rasayana is made up of two terms, Rasa and Ayana. And Rasa means the part of Rasa, and Rasa is the nutrient fluid. So it actually means the part of Rasa or the nutrient fluid. And this means that the major goal of Rasayana is to ensure that the nutrient fluid that we have consumed, that is extracted out of a food, undergoes a complete transformation and nourishes all the tissues and organs of the human body. It's important to realize that Rasayana is not just one medicine, it's not one wonder medicine taking which we could bring about a magical transformation of our body. Actually, Rasayana is a complete, holistic package. It includes lifestyle, it includes diet, and it also includes medicines. And it's a combination of these three, and it also includes psychological, disposition of the individual. And when all these things are brought together in an ideal balance, then we can achieve a very optimal and efficient condition of the internal environment in which the nutrient fluid or rasa gets completely transformed in the metabolic pathways of the body. So when the metabolism is perfect and efficient, then the process of aging can actually slow down. It would be too much to expect any medicine, whether it's Ayurvedic or allopathic, to completely reverse the process of aging. Although we do find some exaggerated accounts in Ayurvedic texts, I think we must understand that that is, part of the poetic way of describing the properties of these treatments. I mean, it would be impossible to go back in time and bring back our youthhood. So what we mean by Rasayana essentially is to slow down the process of aging, to preserve essential functionalities, up to old age. And as we will see in our coming slides, human beings lose their faculties in every decade of life. And as we move from one decade to the next in life, hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Is there a disturbance now, or is it okay? Okay. Right. So ultimately, Rasayana is a lifestyle. And if you want, it depends on how you look at Rasayana and what you want to get out of it. Like if you want, as I was mentioning, the ultimate goal of Rasayana is to achieve healthy aging. And this is a very important concept in Ayurveda. Ayurveda says that we can age in a healthy and successful manner, that we can, be endowed with our cognitive functions, the functionality of our joints, and even though there will be some signs of aging, like which will be there on the skin, the muscles, like we should be able to be self-dependent even in old age. And this is really possible if we practice Rasayana. And to practice Rasayana means also to adopt a certain lifestyle and then make adjustments in food and then also supplement it with medicine. Not just taking a few medicines and bringing out magical changes in your body. So this is what we need to really emphasize, that Rasayana is basically a lifestyle intervention. Now, if you ask in Ayurvedic terms, the goal of Rasayana is to build ojas in the body. How does Rasayana go about with this process of achieving, the long life and health span? So Rasayana focuses on achieving two things, which we can call as lifespan and health span at the same time. And one of the foundations of lifespan and health span is based on what Ayurveda calls as the ojas. And I hope you have heard about the term ojas. We will come back to that. Ojas is the foundation of immunity and longevity. So the goal of Rasayana is to enhance immunity. So that's another aspect. Rasayana not only tries to enhance lifespan and health span, but it also tries to confer immunity from diseases. So it's immunity and longevity. And what is ojas? Ojas is the essence of all the dhatus. Just like the honeybee collects honey from different flowers in the forest, in the process of transformation of the tissues, of the dhatus, produce products which actually play a very important role in the immunity of the system. So in other words, once we know that ojas is the basis for Rasayana, and that ojas is the product of the transformation of the dhatus, then we understand that if there is not a proper transformation of the dhatus, then there is no ojas. So in this way we can work out and understand the mechanisms of Rasayana. So how do we ensure that the dhatus are transforming properly? So for the dhatus to transform properly, we need digestive power. And the channels of the body, the srotas in the body, should all be open and allowing a free flow of circulation. So when this happens, when the digestion is strong and the channels are open, and then when we give nourishment, the dhatus are transformed. And when the dhatus are transformed in the metabolic pathways, then ojas is produced. And if the dhatus are not properly transformed, then ojas is not produced. So this is the bottom line of Rasayana. Through Rasayana, we want to achieve lifespan, health span. Apart from lifespan and health span, we want immunity to disease. And then we also want recovery from disease. So we can say broadly, these are the four goals for which we resort to the Rasayana treatment regimen in Ayurveda. We want lifespan, we want to live long, and we want health span, we want to live healthy, and we want immunity from disease, and then we also want recovery from disease. And the key to achieving the goal of Rasayana is to have sufficient ojas in the body. And ojas comes from transformation of dhatus. Transformation of dhatus come from strength of Agni and the opening of the channels. So ultimately it boils down to working from that level. And we will see how Ayurveda goes about with this process. So it's important to understand the mechanism of Rasayana. The person create the environment in which there is optimal nourishment and transformation of the dhatus. So Rasayana works primarily by internal environment, by making the body suitable for accepting correct nourishment and then transforming it into the complex dhatus. And for this reason, preparatory cleansing is an important aspect of Rasayana in Ayurveda. So for a healthy person, if you want to do Rasayana, then we have to really first doing panchakarma and cleansing of the body. The idea is that if you want to dye a cloth or if you want to paint a wall, you must first clean it up and make it receptive to the new paint that you are applying. So in a similar way, if you take a Rasayana in the body, which is with ama and a lot of metabolic byproducts, then the Rasayana will not produce any effect. It will not be able to repair the system. So before doing Rasayana, it's mandatory that we do a cleansing procedure. And when the cleansing procedure is done, the channels in the body get clear, and this becomes an important preparatory step. So once the channels are clear by the removal of the metabolic byproducts, the digestive fire or Agni is enhanced. This is the next step. So only when the digestive power has been enhanced after the throat process, and then when we do Rasayana, then it produces these effects. So the sequence is cleansing of the body, cleaning, opening of the surfaces, then enhancing digestive capacity, and then giving the nourishment. So when these four steps are done one after the other, then we activate the process of Rasayana. So any Rasayana will have to work at all these four levels to be able to bring about some positive changes in the body. So I hope this is clear. So understand more about this Rasayana. Rasayana is a balance of anabolism and catabolism. So Rasayana is not just, giving nourishment to the body. It's actually balancing the process of breakdown and building. So if you give overemphasis on breaking down processes, then you would call it as Lankana and not Rasayana. And if you give more importance to building up processes, anabolism, then you would call it as Brahmana. But Rasayana is the ideal balance between anabolism and catabolism. So that is why Rasayana does all these things at the same time, as I was mentioning. It cleanses the channels and waste, it enhances digestive fire, and then gives nourishment to the tissues at the same time. And now if we look at the substances, the medicines that we use for Rasayana, you can find that we have many herbs that are Rasayana. We will be able to discuss only a few of them today, but it will be good enough as an introduction. So it's important to realize that some drugs may be good in cleansing, some may be good in removing the waste, some may improve the microcirculation, some may enhance the digestive fire, and some other substances are there which are able to provide specific nourishment to dhatus, and they work like that. So it's very difficult to, Rasayana means to do both Lankana and Brahmana, or anabolism and catabolism at the same time. And therefore, any Rasayana should be able to do cleansing, clearing of the channels, enhancing digestive fire, and nutrition at the same time. And it's important to realize that there's no single herb, there's hardly any single herb which can actually do all of these things together. And that's a reason why we need a combination. And that's why in Ayurveda we have Rasayana formulations which are combinations. So some of the herbs or drugs used in Rasayana when they are used alone, they may be doing catabolic activity or anabolic activity, or they may be just enhancing the digestive fire. But when they are compounded into a formulation with other herbs, then the overall effect of that formulation becomes Rasayana. So Rasayana is more about how the treatment is implemented and and less about what is actually used. I wouldn't downplay the importance of individual herbs and formulations, but to get a Rasayana effect, we have to plan and execute a treatment in a very specific and organized manner. So that's the reason why we need to discriminate that substances can be Rasayana in many ways. So it's also important to understand at what level a particular substance or drug is working to be able to use them in a very effective and efficient way. So this principle also helps us to understand that for different diseases and to different individuals we may need different types of rasayanas. For example, in some people the digestive fire may be at fault. Some others there may be more of clogging of the channels. In still some others there would be a deficiency in nutrition. And in some people there could be one or two combinations of these problems, and yet in some others there could be all these problems. So the rasayana which is suitable for one individual may not be suitable for another. And so we need to look into all these parameters and factors before we decide what type of rasayana is to be administered. An example of a wonderful in Ayurveda. This is called as Hari. Have you heard of Hari? He is a very famous and well-known formula, yes. And it is ingredient in a very formulation also. Can you read that formulation, which is widely used all over the world? Haritaki is an ingredient of a very famous formulation used in Ayurveda. I was just wondering whether you are remembering which is that formulation, which is very widely used in the West. It's very commonly used Ayurvedic formulation. So Haritaki is ingredient of Triphala. It's the first ingredient of Triphala. And Haritaki, we need to know how Haritaki works as a rasayana. Haritaki is a very powerful rasayana because it can remove the wastes and clear the channels of the body. If you take Haritaki, you may get loose bowels, but it doesn't mean that Haritaki is just a purgative. Haritaki actually mobilizes the unwanted waste from all over the body and then brings it into the alimentary tract and then removes it from there. So, and in process, Haritaki also enhances digestive fire. So, in India, this practice is there of chewing the fruits of Haritaki in our mouth, and this is considered to be a very, very effective practice to enhance digestive fire. So Haritaki does these two important steps which are very crucial for preparing oneself to undergo the Rasayana treatment. Yeah, these two important steps are the removal of the micro wastes from the system and opening the micro channels of the body, and then enhancing the digestive fire. So once these three things are achieved, then it becomes possible to enhance the nourishment of the body. So thus we can say that it prepares the way for the nourishment of the body. If you take Haritaki, then you are ready to rejuvenate your body. Your body is cleaned inside out and has strong digestion. So the music is the evening, and if you think it's a disturbance, then I can just try to avoid it. I will take a moment. Just please hold on. Anger, disturbance are complaining. Music, okay. Music, okay. Music, okay. Hello. How now? Can you still hear the music? Okay. 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 Right. So I hope you were able to hear discuss so far. This is also the time of some festivals here in India, and there is a lot of public, public systems that functions very loud, and it's very difficult to find a place where it's really very quiet. This is one common feature in the Indian, human settlements here. So when it's time for these religious festivals, there's a lot of such kind of music and sound. Okay, so we continue. So I was mentioning how Haritaki does the preparation for rejuvenation of the body. So when we take herbs like Haritaki, then we are preparing the body for rejuvenation. But if you take only Haritaki without adding, the essential nourishment, then Haritaki would only end up in weakening the dhatus. It will clean the system, it will increase Agni, but then the dhatus will get weakened because there's no, Haritaki is unable to nourish the body. So for this reason, this is the reason why we create special combinations of herbs, and each herb will do one function or the other. And Haritaki is a very important Rasayana because it does three of what is necessary to achieve Rasayana in the system. And from this we understand also that Rasayana is not just in the herb, but in how we use it. And that's an important point. So Rasayana is not as much with what herb we use, but Rasayana is all about how we use the herb. Now there's another herb, so I think it's very important for us to notice the differences between these herbs, and this will give us a better idea about how Rasayana is used. There are slight differences in how Ayurvedic physicians choose these Rasayanas, because today people make a lot of claims about Rasayana herbs, and so I think it's very crucial. We are looking at two herbs which are able to prepare the body for Rasayana. And Haritaki is able to remove the micro wastes and open up the micro channels. And here's another herb which is called as Bhalataka. This is botanically, the name is Semicarpus anacardium. Have you heard about Bhalataka? Semicarpus anacardium, okay. It's a very interesting plant. It's a very powerful plant. And the seeds produces allergic reactions in humans. It's very similar to the cashew nut. So it looks like a miniature cashew nut. The leaves are a little bit bigger. Yes, I think I did this earlier in one of our meetings, but I'll do one thing. I'll just send a picture. And you can see this in a short while. I'll just send a picture to Yana. And yeah, it'll be good to see the plant, yes. There are some plants which I have included pictures, but Semicarpus I thought was well known. And so I did not include pictures. If you include too many pictures, the files become very heavy, and then it's difficult to upload. So I'll send a few pictures of this plant, and after the break, look. Yes, I will be sending these pictures, and we will just see them during the break. So the Bhalataka is a very powerful Rasayana, and while Haritaki works on the micro blockages, Bhalataka works on the macros, which means the big swellings, the big tumors and cancers. So this is a rasayana which is used also in the management of conditions like cancer. And this completely burns away and shrinks these big tumors, and it also enhances the digestive fire. And while Haritaki actually removes it physically from the body by a process of laxation and purgation. When you take Haritaki, you will get loose bowels. All the waste actually are removed through your bowels. But when you take Bhalataka, it's so powerfully and hot that it actually burns away all the tissue, the big blockages in the body. And just like Haritaki, this also prepares the body for good rasayana. And therefore it has to be combined with other substances to produce a rasayana effect. If you don't take appropriate nourishment to support the body while you're taking Halataka, you might just end up burning your tissues without getting any beneficial effects. So that's why we need to understand that there's no herb that can by itself, do all the things that are required to achieve a rasayana effect. So we looked at two herbs which are removing the micro wastes in the body, micro and macro wastes, by either removing it physically or by burning it. I don't think he removes physically, Ladaka burns it. And then both of them enhance the digestive fire. And then once this starts working, then it becomes very effective now to provide nourishment. In such a body, we are able to provide the nourishment, and through the nourishment, there is a complete rejuvenation of the body. So this is two examples of herbs that work as a rasayana through this mechanism. Now, if you look at it, this is unbelievable that according to Ayurveda, milk and ghee are also very good rasayanas. However, they cannot function as rasayanas when there is no digestive fire, when there is no blockage of channels. Milk is actually the first rasayana that all human beings, all mammals that consume milk. So a young child is actually nurtured by the Rasayana effect of milk. And that is why in Ayurveda milk is considered as one of the foremost amongst Rasayanas. But the thing is that in our bodies are not able to accept nutrient effects of milk because weak digestion, the clogging of the channels. And so when we use herbs like Haritaki and Bhalataka, and then after that we use milk and ghee, then they are able to provide the necessary nourishment. So together, milk by itself may not work as rasayana. Ghee by itself may not work as rasayana. Haritaki by itself does not work as rasayana. Bhaladaga by itself does not work as rasayana. But when we combine them in an optimal manner, then you get very powerful rasayanas. So I was trying to explain a very simple principle of how a balanced rasayana is produced, and how every rasayana will be a balance of anabolism and catabolism, of lankhana and brahmana, and how every rasayana regimen will have to look at cleansing of the body, clearing of the microchannels, activation of Agni, and then nourishing the tissues. So this is the overall approach to Rasayana in Ayurveda. I hope this is clear. Any questions? Because we're going to enter into another interesting and important topic. Now, this is the process of aging according. So we have divided our lifespan into 10 parts, 10 decades, and in each decade, we lose or gain something. So the first 2 decades we always gain, whereas from the third decade onwards, we begin to lose things. So in the first decade, of course, we are in our childhood, and in this age we need to enhance our psychological and physical levels of immunity. And in this period, 2 or herbs are mentioned, vacha and swarna. I'm not providing all the botanical names here. You can search them later, because all of them are perhaps also not available where you are, but they can easily, some of them would also be familiar Sanskrit terms. The reason is that the botanical names are sometimes, there are differences of opinion, and we may, if we just put the botanical names, it will be misleading to go by the Sanskrit name. And so these are the herbs which are specifically to be taken in each of these decades of life. So in the first 10 years, you have to activate speech, we have to activate intelligence, and we have to have our body calibrated. In the second 10 years, all our organs are growing and attaining their normal size and function. So there are 2 herbs like bala. I don't know whether you have heard of bala. So these are herbs which we also discussed during our webinars on pharmacology. We discussed many of these individual herbs. So if you go back to those slides, and then you can find out those herbs. So bala is a very good herb for stabilizing vata. It's good for giving neurological strength. And Kashmiri is another herb. These are the 2 herbs which are recommended in the second decade of life. Now, from the next decade onwards, human beings lose various faculties. So when you are 21 to 30, that luster of childhood is lost. You attain what is called as adulthood. The charm of childhood is lost. People can no longer look at you as a young boy or girl. You now become an adult, and that adulthood brings about changes in your complexion, changes in your luster. And in this period, we have to take amalaki, which is the Indian gooseberry, and this can prevent to a great extent the sudden loss of this luster and complexion in the human body. Is this clear? We are talking about the decades of life, and Rasayana aims to help us to preserve these faculties until the last decade of our life. We may not be able to preserve all these faculties in their full capacity. That would be impossible. But we are still able to keep them in their functional state. So we know there are very old people in whom we can feel the charm. There's a glow in their face, although we know that they have become old. So what Ayurveda says is that what we may lose in each of our decades, we can preserve at least its essence till our old age if we do Rasayana. So once you reach 30 and you have to be aware of losing the charm of your child, of your youthhood. And when you are 31 to 40, this is when you lose your intellect. Medha means intellect. So, in 31 to 40 is the period in which people lose their intellectual abilities. And we know if we want to learn a new subject or if we want to learn, it becomes a little difficult once you cross 30. And why? So, major studies have to be completed before that. And in this period, you can use Kapushpi. Most of these herbs are specifically, so you will need to find out some alternatives and sources for these plants. So between our intellect, between 41 and 50 years of age, to see changes in your skin. So this is the story down, losing its as each decade passes. And here I'm telling you that in these regimens, if you take these herbs according to the principles of Rasayana, then you can hold back a lot of these faculties till you are extremely old. So in this stage, we have to protect our skin, and that is used is called Celestris paniculatus. And if you use this according to Rasayana, then you can prevent your skin from becoming extremely old, very old. So skin care is what we need to emphasize when we are in the age group of, the decade of 41 and 50, and 51 to 60, begin to lose your eyesight. And again, Jyotishmati is the plant of choice. So I would like to just ask, how many of you had problems of eyesight before the age of 50? Okay. So I was asking how many of you had to had problems in eyesight before the age of 50, that you had to use the spectacles, the eyeglasses before 50. Okay, that's good. That's good. So, yes, a lot of people today tend to use eyeglasses in the decade 41 to 50, which Ayurveda says is much early, and this is because of the exposure to things like computer, mobile phones, and television, bright lights, and things like that. So otherwise, the degeneration of eyesight should happen only from 51 to 60. So you could actually prevent, the decline of eyesight until the age of 60, according to Ayurveda. So we are today experiencing decline in eyesight 20 years earlier. And Medha, which we may begin to lose at 31 to 40, along with eyesight over 60, a lot of its sharpness is lost. So we need to ensure that this is not lost and it is preserved. And between 61 to 70 is when we lose. This is for males. For females, it is between 41 to 50 that fertility is lost. So in this period, of course, we don't need to preserve fertility at such advanced ages. But we need to ensure that the loss of fertility doesn't affect the body. And in women, this can cause a lot of problems, emotional, hormonal, and other kinds of problems. So in men between the age of 61 and 70. So there are certain herbs like mucuna and ashwagandha, vitania, somnifera, which are recommended in this decade of life, so that the loss of fertility doesn't produce psychological or physical debility. So this is the next decade of life. And according to Ayurveda, age, you become old age begins after 70. It's a time when your fertility is lost, more or less. And that's when old age begins. So till 70, we are, according to Ayurveda, middle-aged. Should be robust and, and when you come to 71 to 80, that is when our valor, or, our physical prowess, our ability to, what you can say, be brave, courageous, be able to respond to situations with prompt and vigor. You can also say vigor. This is lost in the decade 71 to 80. And to preserve this, we would need to use substances like amalaki and bala. And so that's between 71 and 80. And then there's the real danger of, the decade of 81 to 90 is when your, intelligence. I want to distinguish between two types of intelligence in Ayurveda. When we say metha means the learning ability. To be able to learn specific subjects, to be able to learn from books, whereas buddhi is general intelligence. So we lose the intellect, which enables us to learn specific subjects and topics. That metha is lost, begin to lose in the 31 to 40 decade, whereas the general intelligence we lose between 81 to 90. And here, for general intelligence, the herb of choice is Brahma. So I'm sure you have heard about Brahma. I guess all of you have heard about Brahmi. So Brahmi is what we will use in this decade. And in the last decade of life, 91 to 100, we lose the functions of our limbs and sense organs. And this is the process of dying. And so here we have to do very special Rasayana with Bala. And thus Ayurveda points out what we lose in each decade of life and what we must preserve up to the old age, so that more or less we are endowed with all the essential faculties that human beings need to lead a healthy life in old age. So this is the plan of Rasayana, to give you an idea of how the process of degeneration happens in your life and what decade what we lose, and then what interventions we can do to preserve these faculties. So now we need to look at the methods of Rasayana. There are many ways in which we can do Rasayana. And in ancient times, there were very strict regimens. There's a very strict regimen called Indoor Regimen. This is called as Kuti Praveshika. Has any one of you heard about this type of Rasayana where, it's like being in an ICU in a hospital? You are put inside a very specially constructed building without exposure to sunlight, without exposure to any breeze, wind, no exposure to people. You also lose track of time, and you're put inside that room and you have to be there for 30 days, sometimes 90 days, several months at a time. And the medicines and treatments are done while we stay in this special building which is called as a kuti. So here the goal is to even completely reset your biological clock. You lose 10 cents of time, and when you are completely rejuvenated, it is said that you get back a lot of years in your life. But this method of Rasayana is really very difficult to perform. Later, after the break, we will go into some details about this kind of Rasayana, which is done inside a special building. And this can also be mentally very agonizing, because when people are inside this building, they are not able to have any contact with the outside world. So this can sometimes be mentally very challenging. And our Ayurvedic textbooks say that in the modern age, this is not recommended. I mean, you need really people who are very tough in their mind to be able to withstand this process. So these type of indoor regimen Rasayanas are supposed to produce the maximum benefits. They are said to be able to regenerate even damaged organs. It's able to bring back new luster into your skin. It's able to help people to even bring about cures for very challenging diseases. In modern India, few people have do this, and the results have been mixed. We did not find the dramatic results that have been mentioned in the texts, but the persons who have completed this regimen inside the special building have come back much rejuvenated. So as opposed to this indoor regimen, we have the outdoor regimen, which means Vatatipika, which means the going this type of Rasayana can actually be exposed to wind and sun and can interact with people. And so this is a much more easier way of doing Rasayana. The persons can be at their home or in a hospital or with friends. But of course, they need to follow some dietary restrictions and some lifestyle modifications. But they don't need to do it as rigorously as in the case of the indoor regimen or Kuti Praveshika. So these are two ways in which, and all the Rasayanas that we do today are outdoor regimens. Today, very rarely is the indoor regimen for Rasayana practiced. As I was pointing out earlier, the more strictly you follow the regimen, the more benefits you will get out of Rasayana. The less strictly you follow this, the less effective it becomes. So then we also talked about Rasayana for general health improvement and Rasayana in specific diseases. And the indoor and outdoor regimen are generally used for increasing lifespan and health span, and sometimes also for cure from specific diseases. Now when it comes to cure for diseases, types of rasayanas, which are based on use of drugs for management of diseases, which is called as Ajasrika. And then there are specific, rasayanas for very specific diseases. We will look at the examples later. And then we have rasayanas for promotion of general health. This is called as kamya. So some people may use rasayana for enhancing their intellect and mental functions. Some people want to use rasayana to improve their skin. Some people want to use rasayana to improve their voice. Some people want to use rasayana to improve their immunity. So Ayurveda has also elaborated different types of rasayana for these different purposes. So all rasayanas don't function in the same way. So these are the broad classifications of rasayana in Ayurveda. I want to about an example. I don't know how many of you heard about Chavana Prasha. It's a very popular rasayana in India. It's considered to be a super rasayana and it's sold widely in the markets. So have you heard about Chavana Prasha? Anybody heard about Chavana Prasha? So Chavana Prasha is okay. So this is a very popular rasayana, but today it's made very commercial. They add gold, they add many things, and I'm not sure whether it's really very authentic in the way it is manufactured and also the way in which it is taken. So Chavana Prasha is said to be a rasayana which can reverse the process of aging. The story is that Chavana was a sage who was very, very old, and he was practicing meditation. He was sitting in meditation, and he was sitting for so many days and months that an entire anthill actually came and covered him. And so a princess who was moving around that place saw this anthill, and there seemed to be two openings in the handles where the eyes of the sage was. And this princess playfully pokes the anthill, and then the sage becomes blind. And in order to repent for her deed, she decides to stay and serve the sage who has become blind. And then the sage takes pity on her, and with the help of the Ashwini Devas, who are kind of, celestial gods, he prepares the Chavana Prasha. And after taking the Chavana Prasha, the story goes that the sage became young again and married the princess, and they lived happily ever after, blah, blah, blah. So that is a very interesting story. It's like an advertisement of a Rasayana. You can say that the story is like an old age, an ancient age advertisement. But the bottom line here is that we have a formulation that's very specific to slowing the process of aging. And at this context, I want to introduce another very powerful Rasayana in Ayurveda, which is Amalaki. We talked about Haritaki. And Amalaki is the main ingredient of this Rasayana. So if we begin to understand a little bit about, and later in our webinar today. After the break, we will also have a look at the ingredients of Chyavanprash. Amalaki or Embolica officinalis is the main ingredient. Do you get Amalaki in your place? I think it's a very Indian plant, but probably the dried fruits are also available outside. And actually, the fresh fruits are considered to be more powerful and useful. But we can also do a lot with dry fruits. So if they are collected and preserved, the seeds are removed and the juice can be transported and also used to. So, however, Chyavanprash is prepared with fresh fruits of Amalaki. And the importance here of how Amalaki gives this power to Chyavanprash is that Amalaki is cool in potency. So here we have another type of Rasayana medicine. So we looked at Haritaki, which is hot, which is bringing out all the waste and removing it and increasing digestion. And on the other hand, Amalaki is very cool, and therefore it pacifies Pitta, and therefore prevents inflammatory changes in the body. And it can also cleanse the bowels. So here we have a Rasayana which slows down the basal metabolic rate, the BMR of the body. The entire metabolism now slows down, becomes efficient. The heat generated, it's like using a fan to cool your computer, using a coolant system in the engine to prevent the car from being overheated. So as the process of life move on, there's a lot of heat generated, and this heat is also the cause for aging and decline of the abilities of the body. So Amalaki prevents this aging by slowing down the heat and metabolism. And according to Ayurveda, this is the best amongst the substances that can slow down aging, that can preserve, the faculties of youth. And Chyavanprash assumes its importance because Amalaki is the main ingredient. This is again another Rasayana. So you can see how Rasayanas work in different ways. Haritaki and Bhalataka by clearing and opening the srotases, and Amalaki by really cooling down the system and preventing the fast breakdown of the body structures, and thereby it helps to prevent aging. So people who take Amalaki regularly can find that their entire body becomes quite supple, flexible. There is no early. Amalaki is also helpful in preventing early graying. It's very helpful for preventing eyesight. It's very helpful for preserving the complexion of the skin. And so it works at multiple levels in preserving the faculties of young age. Now we look at some charts. Our challenge is going to be how to find the herbs that are not seen outside India. But that's not the point. I wanted to, explain how we must look at Rasayana. To get the benefits of Rasayana, you cannot say that I took ashwagandha in milk and now that's Rasayana, and everybody you keep telling, you take ashwagandha, you take ashwagandha. I mean, that's not the approach to Rasayana in Ayurveda. We need to really go into a lot of specifics. And we need to really understand what dhatus are actually involved and what level of dhatu we actually want do or bring about a Rasayana effect. So if you look at the 7 dhatus, Rasa dhatu, Rakta dhatu, Mamsa dhatu, Medo dhatu, Asti, Manja and Shukra dhatu, for each dhatu there are different herbs. Like if you want to do a Rasayana for Rasa dhatu, the Rasayana for Rasa dhatu is dry grapes, one of the... And it's very interesting that dry grapes is said to have a chemical resveratrol. I don't know if you have heard about resveratrol. Resveratrol is a chemical found in grape skin especially. And that's why dry grapes are considered more effective in Ayurveda. And this is a very good Rasayana. It is found to be an anti-aging compound, resveratrol, and this is found in grapes. And in Ayurveda, this is used to enhance the quality of Rasa dhatu. And then we also say that dates. Dates is another substance which, when used according to the protocol, can bring about a Rasayana effect in your Rasa dhatu. There's another herb, Kashmiri, which you don't have to worry about, that the botanical name is Melina arbor. So the fruits of this plant are also found to be very effective in doing Rasayana at the level of Rasa dhatu. So if you want to enhance, so if you say Rasa dhatu, the heart, the blood vessels, these are all coming under the Rasa dhatu. And so if you want to do some rejuvenation for the heart and for the vessels, these are some of the herbs and substances that you will use. And then we go to the next dhatu, which is Rakta, which can be loosely translated as blood, though it's not exactly blood in as understood in modern medicine. It's not exactly blood, but yes, it's close to that. And the herbs that we are going to use for Rasayana at the level of Rakta dhatu is Amalaki. Amalaki, of course, is, we know, the Indian gooseberry. And then onion is said to be a Rasayana for Rakta. This is a surprise discovery. And then iron. Iron is also said to be a Rasayana for the blood. And we know iron deficiency anemia is still very rampant in many developing countries. So we looked at two of the major dhatus, Rasa dhatu and Rakta dhatu. And I hope all of you are familiar with the concept of the 7 dhatus. So we are now talking about Rasayana, which is specific for each of the 7 dhatus. So next we come to Mamsa dhatu. So neuromuscular diseases where there is a problem with Mamsa dhatu, muscular wasting or problems, then we must use Harshvagandha and of course folifolia. And in fact, in Ayurvedic preparation with a special type of rice, this is called as Shashtika Shali Pindasveda, which is a type of fermentation, and this fermentation is used to actually strengthen the muscles. And the herbs that are used are is bala. Bala is used along with milk, and then the the special type of rice. The rice is called Shashtika. And this is very good for strengthening the muscles. So you can find ashwagandha and bala. This can be used in muscular dystrophies, weaknesses of muscles, neurological diseases in which there is weaknesses of muscle. And this is the special Rasayana for the Mamsa Dhatu. And then we come to Medas, which is fat. And for doing Rasayana at the level of Medas, Haritaki is a very, very important substance. Haritaki is known to bring down high levels of cholesterol. People who take Haritaki regularly tend to have lows of cholesterol in their system. And the next other herb that is used for medas or fat tissue is gugulu. And gugulu is Commiphora whitei. Which we are already aware of. So gugulu is able to lower levels in the body. And then we also have Amrita, which is Guduchi. Guduchi is called as botanically the Stenospora cordifolia. So these are herbs which act very specifically on the fat tissue. And then when we come to the bone, there are specific rasayanas again, like lac. Lac is the secretion of a particular insect, and it is reddish in color. And this this lac is especially good for osteoporosis. So in Ayurveda we have a special form of gugulu, in which this lac and gugulu are combined together, and this is administered in osteoporosis. So this is a very effective natural Ayurvedic medication for osteoporosis. The lac can also administered with milk to improve, bone strength. It's also good to improve the functionality. It's very good to heal deep tissue injuries. Deep tissue injuries, like if there's an injury in the lungs, if there are injuries in internal organs, in the joints, erosions, and these things are also, respond very well to combination of lac given in along with milk. So, and then there is Shukti, which is pearl, which is also specific for asthidadu or bone. And then we have the conch. These are sources of calcium. And these are the substances which Ayurveda has recommended specifically as Rasayana for the asthidadu. So I hope it becomes clear that our Rasayana has to be very, very specific according to the tissue. And then we have Majja. Majja is the bone marrow, and according to Ayurveda, for the bone marrow, iron is a rasayana, and then bone marrow itself of other animals, as well as vasa, which is the tallow. Tallow is the fat obtained from animals, and these three substances are considered to be rasayana for enhancing the Majja Dhatu. And then we come finally to Shukra or semen, the reproductive elements. And here we are talking only about the male reproductive elements, not the female. And here we have three important herbs. One is Atmagupta, which is otherwise called as Kapikachu or Mucuna pruriens. I will be showing a picture of this plant later after a break now. And this is very good in improving the sperm count. It's been used very successfully in oligospermia. And it's a medicine of choice in increasing sexual vitality as well as in improving or enhancing fertility. And then we have, of course, Pipali, which is long pepper. I'm sure we're aware of that. And this is also a very good rasayana for people who have problems with their sperm. And there's a very special method of giving Pipali, which we will discuss a little later. And then we have Nagabala, which is again a type of Sida species, Sida acuta. And this Nagabala is which is used for enhancing Shukra Dhatu. So, and when we look at these dhatus, we can link them also to the organs. So when you say Shukra Dhatu, prostate, all the reproductive elements come into it. And when we say Majja, then the bone marrow and even the brain and the spinal cord also get involved. And Asthi, Medas, these are all the specific tissues for Mamsa Dhatu, Mamsa and Rekta. When you combine, the heart musculature, if you want to target, then we need to use a combination of Rekta and Mamsa specific Rasayanas. So, according to the Dhatu, when we choose specific Rasayanas, we are able to also work on organs. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so so we had discussed about the Rasayanas which work on specific dhatus. And So we found how the Rasayana medicines have to be chosen for specific dhatus. And important point is that we must also choose Rasayana drugs according to the physical constitution. So depending on what is the constitution of the individual, we have to choose specific herbs. And Vata persons, the herb ghee, cow's ghee, is a very good rasayana. For Pitta, Amalaki and Shatavari, and I hope you're familiar with all these herbs. And for Kapha people, the herbs Bhalataka, Gugulu and Pipali are recommended. In Bhalataka we already discussed, Gugulu also to some extent. And we will also be discussing more about these herbs as we move forward. So we need to choose Rasayanas based on multi-parameter factors. So the Dhatu is one parameter, the Prakriti or constitution is another parameter. We also found that Amalaki is an ingredient in Chavanaprasha, and that the function of Amalaki here is to reduce the heat of the body, reduce the Pitta, and thereby prevent aging. Mechanisms of aging are multiple. The mechanisms of aging are related to specific doshas, to specific dhatus, specific factors related to the lifestyle of the person. And so for that reason we have to choose different types of herbs for different types of individuals. And now into the time, the Rasayana medicines that we use in different seasons also be different. So yeah, I would like to just show the picture of Bhalataka, which we had discussed earlier. So this is the fruit of the plant, which is actually used for its Rasayana properties. And you can see it's almost like a compressed cashew nut. And this part is actually the fruit which has become dried, and this is the seed. This is the part that we use in medicine. As I told, this is extremely producing allergic reactions, and if we touch this plant, it can produce strong allergic reactions. And this is the herb. So the leaves are also quite similar to that of cashew. And then these are pictures of the allergic response we see in people who actually get exposed to this plant. So this plant actually needs to be purified before it's used for medicinal purposes. Purification is done by using brick powder, processing it in fine brick powder, and also by boiling it in cow's milk. So with these we do that. And so now we go back to our previous slides. So I hope you got a of what Baladaka looks like. But have you seen this plant? Okay. Yes. I wouldn't advise to handle this plant because it's extremely toxic. But you might be able to some preparations, and also see any reason why this should be used in general practice. It's very specialized. So only physicians specializing in specific diseases like cancer or such obstinate diseases will need to use it. So now we come to Rasayana drugs, which we give according to the time. That is, in the year, we have to use herbs like Amalaki. So Amalaki is for that reason very suitable to the Indian climate, which is very hot and humid. And probably that's the reason why nature supplies a lot of Amalaki in India than in many other parts of the world. Because for the Indian climate, this herb is extremely necessary and useful. Whereas in the colder season, we need to use drugs that have a hot potency, like for example, Bhalataka or Gugulu or some other herb. So according to the season and the prevalence of the climate, people living in different places can also choose specific herbs. So this shows how accurately, how carefully Rasayana drugs have to be, fine-tuned to be able to produce this, effect. If the wrong Rasayana is used in the wrong time, in the wrong constitution, and for the wrong dhatu, then unwanted effects. And this is also because in Ayurveda we use very powerful Rasayana medicines like Bhalataka, and so their use needs to be done with utmost. Have you heard of Srotases? There are 13 Srotases in all. These are the micro channels of circulation in the body. And out of these 13, 3 are for inputs and 3 are for outputs. So we can say this representing the input-output process. Yeah, they're more gross than nadis. So they deal with the gross input process output system of the body. So 3 for input, 3 for output, and 7 for the 7 dhatus. So the 13 Srotases indicate that, the first Srotas is Prana, is for Prana. And this is the vital air. And this is the most essential input for life. So the 3 inputs, the Srotases for the 3 inputs that sustain life. And the first of these inputs is the Pranavaha Srotas. When the Pranavaha Srotas is not in good shape, the body is not able to receive the vital air. So the Pranavaha Srotas is that input system in the body through which the energy of the vital air, if you look at it in modern terms, it's all about the oxygen that we take from the atmosphere and not the prana in the deeper sense. So this is called as the Prana Maharathas. The Prana Maharathas connects the nasal passages to the lungs and the heart. And the heart and the lungs work as a combination unit to actually oxygenate the body. So the first is the Prana Maharathas, the vital air. The second important input for the body is water. And the srotasas which help the body to receive and assimilate and utilize water, they are called as the Udaka Maharathas. Means the srotasas which are the passages for water in the body. So nadis are much subtler. Nadis are the passages for what we call as the sukshma prana or the subtle prana. Whereas these srotasas represent the functional process of the body. The body is continuously taking in prana, udaka and anna. Udakavaha means the channels which help the body to receive water. So water is the second important input for life. The first input is vital air and the second input is water. So the channels, the input system for vital air is called as pranavaha. And the system for water is called as udakavaha. So I hope that is clear. And I'm sure you would have guessed by now what is the third critical input for life. Third critical input for life. So in this way we have three input systems: the vital air, water and food. And these are together, these are one by one respectively known as the Pranavaha, Udakavaha and Annavaha. So Pranavaha is for vital air, Udakavaha is for water, and Anna is for food. So in this these three channels. Are you aware of this earlier? Because I'm taking a little bit of time to explain this, because it's very, very important to understand how the Rasayana system works. Because the Rasayana system works when the input, process, output mechanisms function. Have you all heard about these srotas? Okay, so some of you have not heard about it, so I think it's really important to know it. Okay, so the sound is good, then okay, we will continue. Okay, fine. So yes, so now we were talking about the input process output system and how it's really crucial for the Rasayana medicines to work to correct this whole process. So the three inputs are the vital air, the water and the food. And then the three outputs, we will look at that first, are of course the fetus, which is called as the Purishavaha Srota. So this is the output system which ensures that all the food waste is segregated and is removed from the body. So this is a very important output system. And then we have the next output system which removes all the micro wastes through the fluids of the body, and this is the urine. and this is called as the Mutravaha. So we have covered two output systems, and then we have, and then the third output system is the sweat. So this is removing the waste products from the skin, and this is called as Vedavaha. And so these are the three inputs and the three outputs. The three inputs are vital air, food, water, and the outputs are the fecus, the urine, and so the next seven are actually the dhatus. The seven dhatus make up the process. So what happens to the inputs as the body takes the essential nutrients from the inputs with the help of vital air, water and food, and then it transforms it from one dhatu to the other, and then produces the ojas, and in the process the wastes are separated and removed. And the integrity of all these srotases, that is what we call, I mentioned when we started our discussion today, that all Rasayanas actually correct the functioning. Vaha means to carry. So it actually means, Udakavaha means that which carries I hope that is clear. Vaha means to carry. So Udakavaha means the channel system which carries water in the body, which carries and transports. It also means that which transports. So to carry or to transport. I hope that is clear. So Srota system has to be perfect. If there is a problem with any of the srotases, then the Rasayana effect will not be there. So Ayurvedic treatments aim to correct the functioning of these srotases. It's a very important strategy of Rasayana. And we will need to also target specific srotases. It has a weakness of the srotas, then we have to, when we do the Rasayana, we have to specifically target the Pranavaha srotas. And so now we will quickly look at which type of herbs are specific for specific srotases. And long pepper, amalaki, and if you look at pepper and long pepper are specific for the Pranavaha srotas. And there are other herbs like bhalataka, also are very good for removing very severe obstruction from the lungs. And also amalaki, and there's kasturi is musk. This was used in ancient times, but now it's not so easily available. So these are just examples of herbs that would work, in very specific srotases. And if you look at Udagavaha srotas, the best Rasayana for Udagavaha srotas is water itself. We have to give a lot of fluids. In Udagavaha srotas, we may have to bring the balance of the electrolytes. So balancing the electrolytes is actually balancing the electrolytes is very important to stabilize the Udakavaha Srotas of the water. And even coconut water is said to be very good for the Udakavaha Srotas because it can balance the electrolytes and the internal fluids. And when we come to the Annavaha Srotas, which is related to food, absorption, that which receives and transport the food. So it would represent the lymphatics, the hepatic, system, vessels which take the food from the stomach and take it to the liver. All this come under the Annavaha Srotas, and especially the villi of the intestines and the absorption that happens through the intestines and the stomach. All this comes under the Annavaha Srotas. And here we have quite a lot of substances, panchakola, which means long pepper, then dry ginger, pepper, then there's another piper chaba, that's a very similar to beetle wine but different. And then we have, of course, plumbago, rosea. These substances are mixed together, and this is called as panchakola, and this is extremely good for enhancing the absorption of food. So in conditions like malabsorption, syndrome, this panchakola is very effective. It ensures in many diseases where nutrient absorption is affected and vitamins are not being absorbed from the stomach, from the gut, when iron absorption is affected, and in all these conditions this panchakola is very effective to enhance the bioavailability of the food substances that we have consumed. So, and then there are certain other herbs which you don't need to. These are also, conch shells, and then of course also another herb plant called Mesua feria. These are all very good to improve the functioning of the Annavaha Srotas. So with this, these are the three Srotases which represent the input system of the body. And then we have also the output system. I prefer to first discuss the input and output system and then come to the seven dhatus. The Srotas for the seven dhatus. So the Purishavaha Srotas, or the Srotas that removes the food waste. So we can call the Purishavaha Srotas as the food waste removal system of the body. And here we have herbs like Hollerina, which can prevent the excess activity of the Purishavaha Srotas, and then Bilwa, which is Armelos. This is very good for increasing the motility and function of the large intestine. And then of course Haritaki, which has the ability to mobilize, scavenge all the waste from the body, bring it to the alimentary tract, and then completely eliminate it. So this is the first output system. And then we have the Mutravaha Srotas, in which we use Shilajatu, which is the mineral exudate from mountains. And this is actually called, I think in English, as bitumen. This is an exudate that comes from. So, have you heard of Shilajatu? So this is very helpful. The urinary srotases, the srotases which are the system for removal of the liquid waste from the body, the kidneys and the urinary bladder and all that, urethra. And so for that Shilajatu, and then Gokshura. Gokshura is a very important plant in Ayurveda called Tribulus terrestris. And then, of course, we have Punarnava, which is also, these are very good diuretics. And these are also good for balancing. These are not herbs which just have an effect on these srotases, but they have a Rasayana effect. That is why they are specifically recommended here. And then for Svedavaha srotas, for the sweat system, there is a special bhasma. This is a rasa preparation. Is considered to be, this is called Vanga bhasma. It's a preparation made from tin, which is used as a rasayana. So this way we have covered the inputs and the outputs, and now let's look at the process. The srotases which help in the transformation of one dhatu into the other. And first we have the rasavaha, the srotas for rasa, and here dates assume importance, and then puffed rice, and then Tinospora cordifolia. These can help to stabilize the function of the rasa srota system. And then we have the Rakta Srota system, which is for the blood. And here we have iron bhasma, incinerated iron, and then ghee, and then the bile of cow, and the, yes. So tin is processed with many herbs and it's burnt into an ash at very high temperature. And Vangabhasma is also, used for infertility, male infertility. Yes, I mean, this is a question which, according to Ayurveda, metals can be purified and converted to a nano state in which they are not toxic anymore, because in India thousands of people use this, and there have been some studies which showed that when we convert these metals into bhasmas, they are completely getting transformed. So a research paper has also been published in a modern research journal. Let me just pick up the link for that journal and I will send it to you, which gives a scientific explanation of why, these metals can be converted into a safe state. So I will just give you the link to that paper. So I'm just searching for that article in question. So here is the link to this article. Okay, yes. Follow this link. You will get the reference of a paper that actually looked at the toxicity of Rasa Sindura, which is actually made from mercury. And this was published in an international, research journal of synchrotron radiation. And the authors have demonstrated what changes happen in the process of preparation. But the preparation of these heavy metal medicines are very laborious, and you need to be very, very cautious and very methodical. And if you make mistakes, then there can be toxicity. So these are what we would call in Ayurveda as the scheduled drugs of Ayurveda, to be highly regulated by the pharma regulatory body. Oh yes, I already have the answer, so you can have a look into that article. So I hope that will give answers for people who have some queries about this. I cannot say that we have completely proved the non-toxicity of metals in Ayurvedic medicine, but we have been able to show that there are a lot of possibilities and explanations, and the strongest thing is a lot of people are actually using these medicines and have not reported any untoward effects even on long-term use. Okay, so now that is for the blood, and then we have for the muscle, and here there is again a poisonous substance, strychnos nux vomica, which is again purified in Ayurveda and then used. It is helpful in doing Rasayana for the muscle. And then there is also gold bhasma. And gold is actually already used in modern medicine, gold compost. But in Ayurveda, a very special nano form of gold is used as medicine. Okay, so that's about the Mamsa Vahasrotas. And then we have the Medo Vahasrotas, which is the fat, which carries the adipose tissue of the body. And this is Gugulu, again Shilajatu, Gugulu we already discussed. And then for Asthi or bone, we have Abha, which is actually a species of acacia, which is used as a rasayana for the bone. And then we have for the Majja, which is the marrow, we have Acorus, and then Eclipta alba, and also silver bhasma. So you can see there are a lot of metals and metallic products used as Rasayana. And it's very important that we have to use them as Rasayana. There will be diet, which are actually the chelating agents which are used along with these. So diet is very important when we use these metals as medicine, because the diet helps the body. Many of these ingredients work as what they call as chelating agents, which remove these metals from the body. And then for the Shukra, or we have milk, and then again Vanga Bhasma, which is common for Sweda, and Shukra, which is the special preparation with tin. So these are concepts in Ayurveda, and the substances which are used are those which are found abundantly in India. But when we want to take this out of India, I wouldn't insist that we should use all these substances. I'm sure we can find alternate substances which could be used in other parts of the world. So I'm not an expert in the metallic medicine. In South India, we don't use metals much. We are more herbal, but we had to study a little bit. And I know that mercury, there is the complete procedure is 18 steps, and there's also Ashta Samskara. The minimal is 8 steps. And one of the Ayurvedic students at Germany, and she's from Switzerland, she actually completed this entire process of mercury purification. The 8-step process. She came to India and completely documented it, and that is her thesis. And she has published how this entire process is done. But personally, I avoid using heavy metal preparations in my practice. And one of the main reasons is that because Ayurveda has become industrialized, and the regulatory control on the industry is still not very satisfactory. So I cannot be 100% sure whether these medicines have been manufactured according to the strict protocols in Ayurveda. And so I usually avoid using the heavy metals in my practice. But I'm also working on finding out more about the scientific aspect. Yes, but texts mention only up to 18. And you need to learn it from experts. So in our college, in our hospital where I now work, we have a department of Rasa Shastra, and they make all these medicines. They also purify mercury, and they make the first step, a combination of mercury and sulfur. They mix it together, and this is called as kajali. And this is a very important step in the preparation of the products. So anyway, I think we leave that there because we have to now come back to our topics. And so with this, I think we got an idea about how Rasayanas are targeted to specific dhatus. Now we will move forward and look into the disease. Just like Rasayanas can be specific for dhatus, they can also be specific for diseases. And sometimes we have to choose the Rasayanas more suited for a particular disease. So for prameha, which means diabetes, we have specific Rasayanas again. We have Shilajatu, and then Haridra is curcuma, is very specific Rasayana for diabetes. And then also Amalaki is a specific Rasayana for prameha. And then if you look at rheumatoid arthritis, it's Tinospora. And then Semicarpus, the plant that we just saw now, Semicarpus, and a cardium which is called Bhalataka. This is also a Rasayana for rheumatoid arthritis patients. And then for heart disease, we have 2 plants. One is Desmodium gangeticum, and the other is Terminalia arjuna, which is called as Arjuna. So these plants are specifically used for management for Rasayana effect in cardiac problems. And then in diseases of so you can see some overlaps when you look at the dhatu, when you look at the srotas, and when we look at the disease, you can see some common overlaps. And it's very important to understand these overlaps and see the concept behind it. And Gugulu and Haritaki are extremely effective for diseases that affect medas or the fat metabolism. And then in bronchial diseases, Bhalataka is effective. And in skin diseases, Tuvaraka, this is a plant called Hypnocarpus florifolia. The oil is taken out of the seeds and this is given as a rasayana. And then we have conditions of anemia where iron is actually the rasayana, and we can prepare it in many ways in our patients. And in mental diseases, we have to use a special type of rasayana substances. And I will explain that separately. And these rasayanas which we use for psychological problems and for enhancing your mental faculties, these are called as the Medhya rasayanas. So Medhya, again I mentioned, is not just the general intelligence but very specific intelligence which enables us to learn about new subjects, acquire new skills. So it's the intelligence that helps us to learn and acquire new knowledge as well as skills. So in these mental diseases, we need to use specific rasayanas, and there are 4 of them which are extremely useful. They could be also used nowadays. So one is Centella asiatica, and I'm sure you are aware of this plant. Centella asiatica, which is known as Manuka Honey. This can be used, the juice of this plant can be used, as a rasayana for enhancing the mental cognitive abilities. And licorice is also a very good rasayana for the mind. If we use it as a rasayana, and we have to use the powder of licorice. And then we have Tinospora cordifolia. The juice has to be used. And this is also a very powerful rasayana for the mind. And when it comes to the last plant, it is Shankapushpi, which is Convolvulus pluricolis. We have to use the paste. And this paste and the juice or the powder of these 4 plants, the 4 plants are extremely beneficial for enhancing the higher mental functions. So in this way we discovered that Rasayana, I'm just going to quickly summarize these points before we move on to the next set of slides, is that we understood that Rasayana is aiming at enhancing lifespan and health span, providing immunity against diseases, and also enabling recovery and regeneration of body tissues and organs. And in order to do this, Rasayanas have to work at 4 levels. One is in the cleansing of the body, and then in clearing up the channels of the srotases, and then increasing Agni, and then providing nourishment. And only when all these 4 things are done, Rasayanas work. And so for that reason, we have to understand Rasayana as a balance of Brahmana and Lankana, or a balance of catabolism and anabolic activity. So only when both happen in a balanced way, we can say that there is Rasayana, which means the building up, the breaking down and the building up activities. You mean the 4 mechanisms. The first is cleansing the the body of wastes, and then clearing the srotas, enhancing Agni, and then nourishing tissues. A Rasayana regimen or a Rasayana program is something which does all these four things together. And then we found that when we do the nourishment or when we do a Rasayana, we have to make it specific to the dhatus, specific to the srotas, specific to the constitution. And when you have a very specialized Rasayana effect as a target, like Medhya Rasayana, for example, which targets the mind, then you need to also choose specific herbs in specific ways. This is one part of our discussion today, and we continue to the next. And in this section, I'm going to explain about some special, special preparations and practices. We discussed earlier how Pipali is a good Rasayana for the lungs, it's good for the heart, for the liver, especially for the liver and the lungs. Pipali is a very good Rasayana. And if you do this Vardhamana Pipali treatment, then people recover from chronic lung disease and also chronic liver disease. And this is given in an escalating dose. The dose starts from 1 gram on the first day. 1 gram is given twice a day with honey. And then every day 1 gram is increased till we reach a maximum dose of 5 grams twice a day. So this maximum dose of 5 grams is then given for 5 days, and then it is tapered by 1 gram daily until we again come back to 1 gram twice a day. And patients have to just take green gram soup during this period, and the total duration of the treatment is about 15 days. And before we do this treatment, we need to, of course, do a cleansing treatment of the body and ensure that the patient is, resting and there's no ama in the system. And once that is done, then this process is started. And this has been found extremely effective in reversing chronic liver disease, in reversing, chronic lung diseases. And so this is called as, in Sanskrit, as Vardhamana Pipali Rasayana. This is a very popular method of Rasayana used in Ayurveda. And the word Vardhamana means increasing. So Pipali in increasing dosage, 1 gram, 2 grams, 3 grams, 4 grams, 5 grams. And then 5 grams for 5 days. And then again 4 grams, 3 grams, 2 grams, and 1 gram. It is powder. It's very difficult to make juice of the Pipali fruits. And actually it's the dried fruits that are used in medicine. So we cannot actually take the juice out of the long pepper fruits. So I wanted to mention this because we have a lot of clinical experience in having tried this type of Rasayana. And the results are remarkable, and even in liver diseases, like cirrhosis, where doctors have said that the condition is irreversible, we have got good results. But the dose fixation is very important. In some patients, we can even go up to 10 grams. You can increase it. But you have to ensure that the person is able to tolerate it. People with Pitta constitution will need to be given less dose, and a person with Kapha constitution will be able to withstand, a larger dose of this medicine, a more larger dose of this medicine. So this is the special Rasayana given in liver and diseases of the lung. And then we have Shilajatu. And this is used in the treatment of prameha. And we say that patient has to take a quantity of what? According to Ayurveda, if you take Shilajatu, according to the Rasayana procedure, then a lot of regeneration happens in the body, and it can prevent damage to the heart and then the eyes. So it is said that a person who takes Shilajatu Rasayana properly, he becomes a new person. I've not tried it in that condition. We have tried Pipali Rasayana in interstitial lung disease, in chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and then in bronchial asthma, and then liver cirrhosis. These are the conditions in which we have found very good results for Pipali. So Shilajatu, we are supposed to take 1 kilo of Shilajatu over a long period of time. And then it is said a person who is suffering from diabetes will become completely renewed. So even the kidney damage and heart, I was already mentioning that these can all be reversed. So there's a very special application for Shilajatu in diabetes. So this is an example of a very big application of a Rasayana. And then we have, and this is again used in the treatment of, it's a mistake in the slide. It's a repeat of previous slide. Google is actually in heart disease, in rheumatoid arthritis. So as the mistake in the slide. It's used in heart disease. It is used in rheumatoid arthritis. It is used in diseases, cholesterolemia, in diseases of the blood vessels. So this is Gugulu. So this is again a very disease-specific application of Gugulu. And then we have Lashuna or garlic. So when I first came to know about this, I was quite surprised that Ayurveda recommends the use of also as a Rasayana. And it's specifically used in the management of many neurological diseases. And especially diseases with convulsive diseases, convulsive disorders, where Vata is blocked by certain obstructive, elements in the body, which is usually Pitta and Kapha, but they are extremely minute obstructions. And so this is again a very specific neurological pain. Ayurveda recommends garlic in milk. And this is also used, we have been using it successfully in conditions like sciatica. And then we have Mucuna pruriens. And this is again a very specific Rasayana medicine, which is helpful in the management of low sperm count and also in Parkinsonism. So this has got the precursor of dopamine, it's a source of the precursors of dopamine, and so this has been found to be effective in the management of Parkinson's disease. A lot of people have actually worked on this. I don't know if you have heard about the Mucuna pruriens and its use in Parkinson's. So the same plant is also has been found to be very effective in enhancing sperm count. So in this way we have seen that Pipali and then Shilajatu, Gugulu, garlic and Kapikachu, these are all very disease specific, Rasayanas. And here I just wanted to point out in these slides that many of the Ayurvedic Rasayanas are extremely complex. So this is only illustrative. We will not spend much time on these slides. For addiction, actually, Brahmi is very good. The principle for addiction is that we must use only substances which enhance sattva guna. Any substance that enhances rajas or tamas will not help. And actually Kapikachu can increase a little bit of rajas. But yes, if it is combined with other herbs, because Kapikachu also enhances ojas, it can be supportive in the addiction therapies, because substances which increase sattva and ojas at the same time, these are very good in the addiction programs. So now I am just showing, this is a software which I had developed when I was working earlier in my other institute in Coimbatore. So these are showing the ingredients. It's just an indication to just show the complexity of some of the Rasayana preparations in Ayurveda. You can see here this medicine is called Agastya Rasayana, and this is the main ingredient of this medicine is Haritaki. And this medicine targets the lungs and the heart, and it does a very good cleansing of the srotases and brings nourishment. And this is having actually 28 ingredients. So you can just imagine the complexity of this medicine. Most of the widely used formulations in Ayurvedic clinical practice have many ingredients. So Agastya Haritaki has 28 ingredients. Can anybody guess how many ingredients the famous Chasha has? Any idea how many ingredients in Chavanaprasha? So we will look into that, Chavanaprasha. And Chavanaprasha, so Agastya Rasayana is predominantly based on Haritaki, and Chavanaprasha is based on Amalaki. And you can see here, according to one of the texts, and there are variations between texts, there are 47 ingredients in Chavanaprasha. So 47 herbs and other substances are required to make Chavanaprasha. And this is quite a challenge, and to include all these herbs at an industrial scale is quite challenging, which is why we do not get very high quality Rasayanas today. This is because the formulation itself is really very complex. So then we have another complex formulation called Narasimha Rasayana. And one of the main ingredients of this formulation is Eclipta alba and iron. And this is very good for enhancing general immunity, for weight loss. It's also good for hair and anemia and such other conditions. And this medicine, this specific Rasayana, has about 16 ingredients. So I've not listed all of them. This is just to give an indication of the complexity of the Rasayana formulations. We use them for very specialized purposes. And here is another important Rasayana. No, it is from Ashwini Devas. And if you look at the next formulation, which is the Brahma Rasayana, this is used actually even in cancer. Is found very effective during and after chemotherapy for cancer, cachexia. And so there are 46 ingredients in this formulation. And this is one of the most powerful Rasayanas which is used in actual Ayurvedic practice. It's very good in restoring immunity in many debilitating diseases while you're recovering from. So this is called Brahma Rasayana. So I just introduced the 4 major commonly used Ayurvedic Rasayanas. These 4 Rasayanas are very widely used even today in Ayurvedic clinical practice. Agastya Rasayana is very helpful in COPD, the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. It's effective in bronchial asthma. It's effective in coronary artery disease. And then Chavanaprasha is very effective also in cancer and in recovery from rheumatoid arthritis. It's good in respiratory diseases like tuberculosis, developing resistance to improve the immunity. And then we have Narasimha Rasayana, which is very good in anemias, in leukemias, and as a general enhancer of immunity, even in diseases like AIDS. It can help to improve immunity. And then Brahma Rasayana, which is one of the super Rasayanas in Ayurveda. So these are all having 20, 40, nearly 50 ingredients, and they need to be prepared with a lot of care. So then we go on to the section. Ayurveda says that you need to also bring down stress levels if you want Rasayana to really produce the miraculous effects. Most of the time, Rasayanas don't work. One reason is we do not cleanse our body well. We may not use the proper diet, and our lifestyle may not be supportive. But even more than that is the mental state of the person. That you need to de-stress yourself. And when you are completely de-stressed, then Rasayanas work very effectively. So for this reason, the Ayurvedic texts talk about Rasayana as lifestyle itself. That the person has to be truthful, free from anger. They should not be indulging in alcohol, because too much of drinking of alcohol is also a sign of stress and can also produce sex. And too much indulgence in sexual pleasure, and then to follow non-violence, not involving in too much activity which is beyond one's strength, being peaceful, engaging in pleasing speech, practicing, chanting, maintaining cleanliness, being stable and steady. All these kind of qualities are described to ensure that the person is not under any mental stress. So being compassionate, sleeping and wake. So no physical or mental stress beyond the certain limits. You must not overstress your system, because then the Rasayana medicine does not work. So like avoiding unwholesome food, not being too egoistic, being interested in spiritual knowledge, and interacting in a balanced way with the people and environment. And if you are in a very stress-free condition, then that itself, we say, is Rasayana. So you don't really need to do very complex formulations. So they are also possible. But Ayurveda says that on the other hand, if you are able to completely de-stress your mind, then that itself works as a Rasayana. So de-stressing is a very powerful Rasayana. And so yoga also works. If you do practice yoga properly, then yoga also becomes a Rasayana. So here again more things mentioned. It was found that people who believed in God were less stressed and had longer life. This was some study published some time back. And what they found was that it didn't really answer the question whether God really exists or not. But definitely belief in God reduced stress quite a lot. People who didn't believe in God, did not have an option to unload the stress of their mind, and so they were naturally more stressed up and even affected their lifespan. So having self-control and then reading about these moral, scriptures, ethics and such other values help the mind to be stress-free, and then this achieves also a Rasayana effect in the system. So this is a theory about how stress can help as a Rasayana, because it brings, normal hormonal balance. It works just the opposite of stress. This here you can see how stress, activates adrenaline, increased catabolism, leads to depletion of tissues, and which in Ayurveda means the loss of ojas. And then this causes, decreased immunity to diseases, and then all the disorders are produced. Whereas when you are stress-free, then the opposite happens. There's a lot of ojas, abundant ojas in your system, and this enhances immunity, and your mind also becomes stable. Tadruchaya means, wasting of tissues. the dhatus are burnt because of the demand for energy. So after due to stress, there is something as we call a burnout. Now we come to a very quick summary of the two types of rasayanas that we were talking about. Rasayana without restrictions is called as Vatatapika. That is, you can do this rasayana while you are leading a normal lifestyle, but with controlled diet and lifestyle. And many rasayanas like Chamanapras, Brahmi, Amalaka, Indra Rasayana and many others picks up. These rasayanas are advised after a cleansing procedure, and these rasayanas are taken in small quantities, and you can choose to take half a teaspoon every day for a long period of time, but follow some dietary and lifestyle restrictions. And although the effects may not be dramatic as a full-fledged course of rasayana, these types of rasayana also produces good results in the long run. So you can have two programs that you can either take small quantities over a long period of time or large quantities on a small period of time. But if you want to do a larger quantity of rasayana, then you have to make sure that you do this under proper supervision. There should be experienced people overseeing, the actual process, because otherwise it can lead to harm. And all rasayanas work when the mind is stress-free, when the body is clean and the srotasas are clean and there is good Agni. So you need to make sure that all these parameters are, controlled. And then we come to the traditional classical rasayana, which is supposed to produce the most dramatic results, that you shut yourself inside a special hut which is made for rasayana. This is almost like you inside an intensive care unit, an ICU, and you have no contact with the external world. You don't see the sunlight, you don't listen to the breeze, you don't see people, you are in absolute darkness for many days. This can be very frightening, and this can also be mentally very agonizing, so you need a person to be extremely strong. And even our classical texts say that this is not for everybody, this is not everybody's cup of tea. And this is a house with multiple chambers, so there are outer chamber and then the inner chamber, and so people just cannot even see who is sitting inside. And they are continuously monitored by the experts. And for this procedure, patient is taken on an astrologically auspicious day and time. And then the Rasayana medicine itself is the main food. He eats the medicine itself like food. And then for food, he takes only rice with milk or milk. Nothing else is allowed. He can practice meditation and few yoga asanas, but can never come out of the room until the whole process is completed. So this is the ways in which rasayanas are done. And if you do rasayana properly, then you get these benefits. These benefits are, it is enhancing lifespan. And because rasayana aims to achieve healthy aging, it means at the old age, you should be having all these, enjoying all these faculties if you have done properly. Long life, memory, cognitive powers, immunity. The aging slows down, you're still able to speak through and intelligently, and you're still fertile, and then there's luster. You couldn't ask for more. So while it's not possible to really stop aging, and to prevent death. Ayurveda definitely says that old age, the quality of life in old age can definitely be improved. And we can minimize the number of diseases to which we become susceptible. And diseases in a person who's doing Rasayana will only be manifestations of, adapting to the changing environment. They will not be really serious diseases. So disease just becomes of learning to cope with the environment, and body will be able to overcome diseases in a person who does Rasayana properly. And so this is the concept of Rasayana. We still have one more hour of Rasayana topic to continue, which we will do on Friday. I think we have now completed our topic for today. So there's some more things about Rasayana which we need to discuss. And I was initially thinking of doing 4 hours at a stretch, but it looks a bit stressful, to be able to focus continuously, especially speaking to a blank screen. So I think 3 hours is the limit. And so we will continue on Friday, and the first hour will be covering the remaining aspects of Rasayana.